Let's make some noise. Come on.
Right indeed, Nick Foles. Let's make some noise, everybody. Welcome back to the Final Word here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network with your boy MattyB on the call on this New Year's Eve here in 2025. My final word for the year. All done after tonight. We will not see or talk to each other until New Year's Day, 2026. So we're going to kind of close the loop, close the gap, put the I's, cross the T's, all that stuff on some things. The top 5 best Philly sports stories of 2025, as according to me here on the program. So we're going to do that. It's the time of the year where we run down lists of greatest all time or top this, bottom that, most outrageous this. And tonight we're going to do the top five Philadelphia sports stories of 2025, according to me, of course. Got to throw that disclaimer in there, as I have to do with everything else. We're also going to get into some Eagles. The Eagles are, twisted and turning in the wind right now. What are they going to do on Sunday? Do you sit? Do you play? Are you pushing for that number 2 seed? Does it even matter? And we're going to talk a little bit about the scenarios that may or may not play out as your defending Super Bowl champions are getting ready to punch their ticket back into the playoffs for another run. Does it count as a Super Bowl run to make the playoffs, or do you have to actually, what's the limitations on a Super Bowl run? Is not getting back to the playoffs, classify as a Super Bowl run, or do you have to actually get to a certain level of the playoffs to be considered on a run? Whatever that is, the Eagles are going to start their preparation for that. I would hope they've already started that. But we're going to get into some more Eagles talk tonight, scenario talk. We're also going to talk a trade. I got 2 trade scenarios I want to throw out there for you guys because I think they're very interesting trades. One football, one baseball related. Because we're going to focus on the baseball side of it again tonight. Still no news with JT Realmuto. And don't give me the holiday nonsense either, because there's action out there. Players are moving. News out of L.A. tonight. 2 news stories out of L.A. tonight. Rendon and the Angels are going to part company. They bought him out of his final year of his contract. And what's his name? Kirby is headed back from the Dodgers to the Angels. So there's action on the hot stove, but no action in Philadelphia hot stove. So I'm gonna propose a trade because as I said last night, I don't think JT's coming back. So we're gonna have to figure out the catching situation, and we just don't have it in house. We just do not have the horses in house if JT does not come back. We got to find a catcher, and I got a trade proposal for you. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. And I also have a football trade proposal, and I know you're not going to like this because I am speaking blasphemy. That's right. I am standing upon the mountain, turning over the change tables in the temple, saying, "You hypocrites, you vipers, you liars," because I'm gonna put one of those trades out for you here today. See how you take it. We're going to get into the hot stove. We're going to do all of the night segment, the card review, and our day in Philadelphia sports history. Again, our final day, our final everything in 2025, because there will be no It's a Wrap. There will be It's a Wrap Sports tomorrow, but there will not be any live programming at all tomorrow, except in the early hours of January 1st when we'll do the Clear the Ice show. But there will be all best of stuff tomorrow during the day and into the early evening. And I'll be back on January 1st. Actually, I'm pulling double duty on January 1st. You're going to be seeing a lot of me starting right now. Right now, it's all MattyB all the time. You got me tonight. I'm coming back later tonight to do the Clear the Ice. I'll be back again tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Special New Year's. No, we're not doing that tomorrow. We're doing that. So you'll see me tonight doing this to Clear the Ice later tonight. Later tomorrow night, early the 1st, doing Clear the Ice. 4 o'clock on the 1st, doing Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn on January 1st, New Year's Day. And then 9 o'clock, doing Jesus Christ, Final Word. So I'm the only one on the network working from this point on. I know I'm the boss, man. I'm in charge of this thing. And I'm the only one working now until sometime on Friday? The hell, man. That's the kind of guy I am, though. As a true leader, the Army taught me this long time ago. A true leader never has somebody do something that they won't do themselves. So you got me for the long term, long haul into January 1st. I hope you guys can handle that. Adam C is checking in. What's going on, Adam? How are you tonight? Good to see you back again. Welcome. So we're going to get into a lot of things tonight. Again, I top 5 MattyB Philadelphia sports stories of the year. Again, according to me, I really want you guys to understand that. It might not be what your top 5 are. It may not be what rational, sane thinking people's top 5 are, but it's what mine is. And I think it's pretty fair. I do. And so we're going to mix that list in as we move through the show tonight. But I guess it's time. Let's get it going. Oh, before I do that, let's show that schedule so everybody. So I'll make sure I'm right about it. So tonight, you got me right now at 9:00. Later tonight, you're going to have me with Flyers Canucks. That game gets underway in about an hour. So as soon as this show's over, I start watching that game, so I can get back here around 1 a.m. to do the clear the ice. And then tomorrow, starting at 8, or actually probably starting earlier than that, because we're going to probably rerun clear the ice tomorrow morning early. And then we're going to start 8:00, the best of It's a Wrap Sports for the week. So some of the shows from this past week that you might have missed, that you've forgotten about, well, they're going to be right in your face tomorrow starting at 8. And that's going to run throughout the majority of the day into the early evening. And then post-game Flyers Flames after the clock strikes midnight. So I technically will be coming at you on January 1st, but we call it New Year's Eve. And then on New Year's Day, Thursday, I got you 4 p.m. for the Birds Blast, and I got you again 9:00 for the Final Word. And Friday, the Philly Friday Frenzy with Big Al. Post-game Flyers Oilers on Saturday with Mike Laro, and then a big day on Sunday as we head into the final weekend of the NFL season regular-wise. Philly AM Sports, Steel City Sunday, pregame at 3:00. Eagles Commanders, the Birds flyby at postgame that game around 7:30. And then me a Final Word at 9. And then sometime around the midnight hour, hopefully it's good for them, the Steel City Sunday postgame show. So a lot of stuff happening. Definitely keeping us busy. Or again, let's be honest, man, keeping me busy. I don't think anybody else over here is busy but me. I don't think anybody else is strapped to their computer all day long other than me. I really have my doubts on that. But I do it because I love it. So let's get it going. Keep your let's get it strapped in, strapped up, strapped on. Keep your head, hands, and feet inside the car at all times. And here we roll for your day in Philadelphia sports history. December the 30th, 1943. The Phillies and Pirates traded Babes, and neither of them were named Ruth. The Phils traded first baseman Babe Dahlgreen to the Pittsburgh Pirates for catcher Babe Phelps on this day in 43. The deal was the last time 2 Babes were traded for each other until Brad dumped Jen for Angelina. So stupid, man. I don't like this stuff. I should have mentally edited that before I read it. But seriously, Dahlgreen had a great season for the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1944, slash line of .289, 12 homers, 101 RBIs, while Phelps never came off the voluntary retired list for the Phillies. So yet another great trade in Phillies history, this time including 2 Babes back in 1943. One went on and had a great year for Pittsburgh, and the one we got never played an inning for the Phillies. So there you have it, your last day in Philadelphia sports history for 2025. We'll rejoin this on Thursday as we'll kick off 2026. So I hope you enjoyed that and all these segments throughout the entire year of this day in Philadelphia sports. We're brought to you by the Philly Friday Frenzy. Every Friday night at 9, join Big Al for your new Friday Night Lights here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network, as Al will recap what was the week of Philadelphia sports and get you ready for the coming weekend of Philadelphia sports. So make sure you're checking out the Philly Friday Frenzy every Friday night at 9. So yeah, let's get into it. Eagles Commanders. there's a scenario that's in play for the number 2 seed. Right? Let's address that right now. Right now, let me kind of let's go over that, how this stuff will break out. So, if the following happens, the Eagles will get the number 2 seed. Right? It's kind of it seems a little like layered, right? So if the Eagles win, obviously the Eagles got to win against the Commanders in order for any of this stuff to be in play. But they need help. They need to have the Bears lose. They need to have the Seahawks lose, or they need to have the Packers lose or tie. Now it's possible that all this happens. It is, and of course the scheduling of Week 18, which again, still trying to wrap my head around why we have Bears Lions at 4:30 along with Eagles Commanders at 4:30. I don't understand why they did that, but it's in play. Now, Saturday night, the Seahawks will play the 49ers, right? If the Seahawks win that game Saturday, it's done. There's no chance the Eagles will get the number 2 seed. The way I understand this, they have to have literally the Bears, Seahawks, and Packers lose, or the Packers lose or tie, and the Eagles win for them to get the number 2 seed. That all has to work, right? Now, if you're Nick Sirianni and you're preparing for the Commanders on Sunday, knowing that I think next week your 2 main opponents right now are looking like it's either going to be LA or San Francisco. I mean, I think there's an outside chance that Green Bay gets thrown in there somewhere, right? Okay, so let's call it 3 main opponents for next week. I mean, are you really concerned at this point in trying to get that number 2 seed? Or are you coming up with multiple contingencies of like, okay, if we go into Sunday with that number 2 seed thing still in play, do we push the pedal to the metal and then we kind of wait and scoreboard watch and see how everything else breaks out? I guess the best thing for everyone concerned would be the Eagles or the Seahawks winning, and then just ending that right on Saturday night. But I know there's going to be, as we get deeper into this week, and I know New Year's will drain a lot of this out. We won't have the opportunity to get too into this conversation, and that's probably a good thing. But the conversation of whether or not to sit or play players at this juncture of the season with literally just one position to go up in play, to me, is just not worth it. Just, the dogs are here. Let them lie. You're the number 3. You're going to get 1 guaranteed home game, and after that, all bets are off. Because I know this town, and I know this sports fan base. I know what was going to happen if somebody of importance blows out their ACL, is lost for the duration of the year in an attempt to move up to the number 2 seed. And it's gonna, it's going to be another matter of, just nonsense. Another distraction that's already been a very distracting season. So, not even like attempt. It's not like you're going into a bye scenario. If you had a bye week on the line, yeah, absolutely. But there's really nothing here for the Eagles to win, in my opinion, that should deviate them from what the grand prize is to win a Super Bowl. So if you're asking me, MattyB, I say sit them. You know what? Don't even go into the game. Bench them. Put them in street clothes. Put them on the sidelines. Put clipboards in their hands. That's it. Let the second, third, fourth, whoever play. Let them all play. Cycle them in and out of the game. See what you got. Don't forget, this is the last chance you're going to see some of these guys be able to play before you got to make decisions about them in 2026. And that time's coming. So players like Ty Robinson, who has he even sniffed the field this year? Give him a shot, right? Get Will Shipley an ample amount of carries in this football game to make a decision whether or not you want to go forward with him. Tanner McKee works in a lot of different ways here. Trade target, more experience. There's a win-win going on with Tanner McKee. Get him out there and play him. And then take his ass out in the halftime, put Sam Howell in. To be honest, get some of these players some reps, get them on the field, see them at game speed, because the Commanders are going to play this game, I would imagine, like it's real. So let's see how these guys do against that type of competition with that sort of urgency level. And just rest the guys that you're going to need. Jalen Carter doesn't need to play on Sunday, right? The entire Eagle offensive line doesn't need to play on Sunday. Jalen Hurts doesn't need to play on Sunday. Saquon doesn't. None of these guys need to play on Sunday. Not when you have the bigger picture ahead, which is to win a Super Bowl. So I'm going with that. I really don't see a reason to justify putting these guys out there. I really don't. Adam says he agrees. I don't see it. I don't. I think the end is not worth the means here. And giving them an opportunity and giving the players that have not played, Keely Ringo could be the last time you see him in any kind of decent amount of action for the Eagles. Give him that last chance. Put him out there. Some of the other first class 2025 draft that has not really played at all this season, give them their opportunity, because you're going to be right in that decision-making process here coming up very soon. And I got it. Game performance is part of the overall picture about what you're doing with a player long-term, but it's a big part of the overall picture. So you got to see how these guys react in game time. And I just don't see risking an injury to somebody that you're really going to need going down the stretch. I just don't see the benefit there or the reward of that. So rest the players and do what you got to do with them in the week that come up. Give them the bye week. They're not getting a bye week. You know what I'm saying? They don't have a bye week. They're going to play next week. They got to play next week. And you got to give them that opportunity. So rest the players and move forward from there. So I say rest the players. I don't know how you guys come out on this. Adam says he agrees with me. Rest them. I don't know, man. I just don't see the benefit here. We're not going from 2-1. We don't have an opportunity for now. If it was the old way and you still had the first two seeds getting the bye, absolutely, let's fight. But I just don't understand that. I don't get the fight here. So let's rest the players. And another bit of news around the NFL tonight, which I think is funny. Trayvon Diggs, the Dallas Cowboy defensive back, released today by the Cowboys, man. Don't really know what the situation. I've read some stuff about it. I think it's something to do with off the field behavior. There was a story that after their game last week against Washington, he wanted to stay behind and not fly back to Dallas with the team because he had family in the area. They said no. Then I guess he asked again and said, I don't really care. All you're doing is making me fly back to Dallas because right after I get back to Dallas, I'm flying right back up here. Can you I'm asking you to hook me up here. I want to hang out with my family. They said no again. Dallas, the Cowboy organization, is denying that conversation ever took place. And today he gets released. So very interesting situation if you're an Eagles fan. Very interesting situation if you're an Eagles team. Your defense is gelling right now. I mean, that's obviously what it needs to happen for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl, is this defense to continue to play at this level. But if he clears waivers now, that's a big if, because I don't know where the Eagles stand in the waiver process. I don't know where they're at, how many playoff teams are ahead of them, and really how many teams, because, I mean, you don't have to be a playoff team to be part of the waiver issue. And if you want to pick somebody up for next year, why not? But I don't know if he makes it through waivers. And, I don't know how far down the list the Eagles are on the waiver side of this, but why not put a claim in for him? And then if he hits the open market, obviously go ahead and try to make a push to sign him. If he's a cancer, all right, whatever, you have him for the rest of the year, and he could definitely help you in that secondary. And if we can add another weapon back there, Obviously, that takes some of the pressure off the guys that are here, and continues to build upon the strongest point of this football team. So, Diggs is out in Dallas. The other Diggs in New England is getting charged with strangulation, assault charges. I mean, good God. The wide receiver there, Stephon Diggs, is been accused of felony strangulation charges. He's stop the world. I want to get off, but no, I say Trayvon Diggs, if he makes it through waivers, or if the Eagles obviously put a claim in for him and maybe makes it down to you and you take him. If not, push hard to get him in the open market. Bring him here. I don't care. Are we really going to sit here and talk about character guys at this point? I mean, with all the nonsense happening in the Eagle locker room, does another one really matter at this point? And it's just for the run at the end. But a very interesting situation going on in Dallas and in New England with the two Diggs people. So keep on that story. I remember what Dan Quinn said a few weeks ago, that we play them in 2 weeks. They don't play them in case he tries to hurt. I remember what Dan Quinn said a few weeks ago. If we play them in 2 weeks, don't play them in case he tries to hurt anyone. And that's another good point there, Adam. Absolutely. I know there was some bad blood after that game a couple weeks ago, which, again, here's the deal, guys. I understand a player's pride, and I've been there, and I get it. No one wants to be part of a losing situation. Nobody wants to be considered a loser. And quitting is the first sign of losing, and you're going to fight to the end and what have you. And nobody wants to be, shown up in any certain way. I got all that. But the whole thing that there's a fight going on between first of all, the Eagles should be bigger and walk away from stuff like that, because what's happening with the Commanders is not on the Eagles level right now. The Eagles level's up here, bigger things in mind. The Commanders are down here in the mud. Let them continue to be in the mud and just walk away from stuff like that. But on the side of, and I remember the comments that he said, and I remember hearing all that noise at the end of the game. I believe he said it also in the press conference, that they're going to play each other again in 2 weeks. And that's a very good point. I don't know if anybody is really talking about that. Not to say that there's going to be any shenanigans of the illegal type, but why put yourself in a position to have to deal with that, right? So another point of resting your players. Again, the Commanders are down here. The Eagles are up here. Commanders are going home after Sunday. The Eagles are going forward. And you really want to come out of that game with the entire complement of players available. So very good point, Adam. To risk any kind of nonsense because of shenanigans and fighting and all that just doesn't really seem worth to the Eagles, because it doesn't matter to the Commanders. They ain't going anywhere. They're done. Why do they care if they drag anybody else down there with them? And it's not a case of playing spoiler. If you're going out there to try to hurt somebody, that's a whole different thing. And it's very unsportsmanlike. I get it, but we can cry and moan about it after the fact. But if you can see the accident before you get there, veer off the next ramp and go a different way. So rest your players on Sunday and sign Trayvon Diggs, or go out and make a waiver claim on him. It'd be interesting to see him wearing Eagles midnight green for a Super Bowl run. Can you imagine those two lining up next to each other? Now, that would be a formidable defensive backfield. Diggs, Mitchell, and you got DeJean in the slot, or DeJean down there at the either in the slot. That'd be interesting. That's one hell of a secondary, if you ask me. But that's what's going on with the Eagles, and that's the scenarios, and that's everything that we're going to talk about there. Nothing new on the front of practices yet. I believe tomorrow they'll be back at it for a practice to get their week started. But here on the network, idle hands are the devil's playthings. So today, somebody that's involved in this network created a graphic, a proposed trade. Of course, we're all following the drama out in Las Vegas. Max Crosby getting benched, right? He doesn't want to be benched, but the Raiders are done. He's shutting them down. He's done. Brock Bowers is done for the year. The Raiders are basically, pulling up their circus tent for the season and moving on. So somebody here at the network created a graphic, an interesting proposal off-season trade proposal between the Eagles and the Las Vegas Raiders that I found very interesting. And I'm gonna show it to you. It's up on our social media sites if you haven't seen it. And I want to talk about it because I think it's more interesting than you give it credit for it. And here it is. So Crosby and Bowers and the Raiders 2026 first round pick, which right now is the number 1 overall pick in the draft, in return for Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. Now I know. Yeah, I know. I get it. Whatever. You want to give me, you want to jump all over me because I'm actually suggesting trade between trading of Jalen Hurts? Fine. Yeah. Once we get past all your hurt feelings, maybe we can talk about actual football business. Does this trade make sense for these teams? Let's look at it that way. Let's look at this thing from the very baseline. Does it make sense for the Raiders? Absolutely does. The Raiders have been desperate for a quarterback since friggin' Jim Plunkett retired back in 1985. Right? The Raiders are so deprived of quarterback. The Raiders are more deprived of quarterback than the Flyers have been deprived at goaltending. So does it make sense for the Raiders to get a Jalen Hurts type of player? 100%. You're trying to rebuild that franchise. And a face of the franchise, which would be Jalen Hurts, a foundational piece of that franchise, a player that's under contract for a long period of time would be that, obviously, in Jalen Hurts. A.J. Brown. Now, does it make sense for the Raiders to get an A.J. Brown? Hey, if you're going to get the number 1 quarterback, you might as well bring his number 1 wide receiver with him. And as far as the Eagles, does it make sense to trade A.J. Brown? I think it does. I honestly don't believe A.J. Brown will be a Philadelphia Eagle in 2026. I don't think we're going to deal with another year of the drama and the distractions. A.J.'s getting dealt. I think that's a pretty much understood concept. Whether he gets dealt to the Raiders, Patriots, whatever, is up in the air, but he is going to get moved at some point this offseason. And that's not hate talk. That's just the reality of it. And it would make sense for the Raiders to acquire a number 1 wide receiver that's worn out his welcome in Philadelphia. Now for the Eagles, Max Crosby. Does it make sense? Well, let's look at Max Crosby. He is under contract, and I've only looked at two things. Max Crosby is a beast of a player. And Max Crosby would set this defensive line off. You're looking for an edge rusher? You're looking for someone you can slide inside and outside? You're looking for a versatile defensive lineman? You found one. Can you imagine Max Crosby running up and down our line along with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and the others? Can you imagine what that would look like? How much havoc that would create on a given play, every given play. Max Crosby's also under contract through 2029. So you got 26, 27, 20. You got 4 years of control of Max Crosby if you can pull off that trade. So he's not a rental. He's another piece to add to your defensive puzzle. Brock Bowers makes perfect sense. He's under contract through 2028. So you got him 28, 27, you got him for the next 2 years. Right? We need a replacement for Dallas Goedert, who hasn't had a great season, has had a contract-like season, pretty lining up with the fact that he's due a contract this year. But Brock Bowers is an upgrade over Dallas Goedert. He's another weapon. You add that into the mix. So to me, this trade makes sense. And what is the sweetener of it all is that 2026 first-round pick, which would be, of course, the first overall pick in this year's draft. Now, of course, the first question is, after you wipe the tears out your eyes and start looking at this team from a football standpoint instead of some crazy Hurts-hugging obsession point, what are the Eagles going to do a quarterback if we trade Jalen Hurts? Well, that's what that first-round draft pick can be for. Now, obviously, you're looking at what? Who are the top two? I've got it. The draft class is not stacked this year. It's not. You got Dante Moore from Oregon. Of course, you got Fernando Mendoza from Indiana, sort of your top 2 quarterback prospects. Now, Mendoza, of course, is the Heisman Trophy winner. You got Tanner McKee that's here. You go ahead and you take one of those 2 quarterbacks, you put them behind McKee, or you have an open competition. I'm okay with that because honestly, and again, I'm going to give you the standpoint of where I come out on this. Jalen Hurts is replaceable on this football team. He's 100% replaceable. Everybody is, honestly. And if I can significantly upgrade my defensive line, because we have a problem on the line, and we're going to have that problem again next year, and we don't have a tight end after this season. And Brock Bowers is a different type of tight end on a different part of his career going forward. And you factor in the 2026 first-round draft pick. I 100% would do this trade. 100%. Because I'm all about the name on the front, not on the back. Now, most of you out there are not. Most of you are out there want to leap off a bridge, or more importantly, throw me off a bridge for proposing something like this. But this is the reality of the football business. I put out a trade offer back in February. I said the Eagles would be smart to try to move Saquon Barkley for like a Herschel Walker 7-for-1 type deal. And I got scoffed at for that. I bet you that trade might be looking a little bit better based on the season that Saquon had this year. Again, these are football business type trades. I think Jalen Hurts is extremely replaceable on this football team. I don't think he's all that. I think he's a good starting quarterback, but I think he's replaceable. And if I can upgrade two other areas on my football team and then acquire the first overall pick in this year's draft, I 100% listen to this trade if it's ever offered or considered. So there's my first trade proposal. Again, this was put up on our social media site today by somebody here on the network. I will keep their identity secret because not everybody laughs in the face of danger like I do. So I will keep their identities a secret. But that was one of the trade offers that was proposed, and I 100% support it because nobody on this team is non-replaceable. I can't honestly sit here and tell you Jalen Hurts going forward is the sun moon of the Eagles. I really don't. I don't know what he's done to garner so much of this like godlike respect that people give him. He's done well. He's won a Super Bowl. He's helped the Eagles win a Super Bowl. He's helped the Eagles get to 2 Super Bowls. But nothing that I've seen from Jalen Hurts says, you know what, you can't replace that. And there's going to be that moment anyway where you're going to have to. Either through he salaries his way out of here or maybe an injury or something. You always got to be kind of one step ahead of everybody else, correct? And if I have an opportunity to pick up two very talented players in Brock Bowers and Max Crosby and the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft, and all it's costing me is a guy in A.J. Brown who doesn't want to be here anymore, and we don't want him here, and Jalen Hurts, I am 100% in on that trade. 100%. Jalen Hurts is replaceable. Absolutely 100% replaceable. And if I can upgrade my team like that significantly, I make that trade. So kudos to the person who created this. I give them a lot of credit. And I would definitely be listening if I was both the Eagles and the Raiders. It would be a good trade, but you do think the Eagles would act? No, I don't. That's the bottom line is I don't. Because there is another factor in on this, Adam. It is the starting quarterback X factor. Not the Jalen Hurts X factor, mind you, but the starting quarterback X factor. We've seen it time and time again throughout the history of NFL football. The sun does set and rise by the quarterback. And if you don't have a good one, you're doomed. You can have 1,000 Max Crosbys and 100 Brock Bowers and 1 million first-round draft picks. If you don't get the quarterback right, things are not going to work well. And I 100% agree. But I don't think what Jalen Hurts provides the Eagles is that irreplaceable. And I think that if you going out and literally kick the tires, and again, I know that the top 2 quarterback prospects in this year's draft, the kid out of Oregon and what was his name? Mendoza out of Indiana are not what you would call, I mean, you're looking at there's less hype around these kids than there was last year with the group that came out. And, to take a quarterback for the sake of taking a quarterback is not the right answer either. But I think you could work with that. And I think you can work with the fact that if you had to go with and keeping Tanner McKee here for a safety net, or an opportunity, because he's been in the system for a few years, he could potentially start off as the starter and you could work your way into it. As long as you can kind of keep the defense working at your optimal way, the way it is, we're seeing the defense winning football games for the Eagles all season. That's another thing that boggles my mind about this Jalen Hurts love. Jalen has done nothing offensively for this team to help them win in 2025. He's done his job. He's moved the football, but has he been the, what does Al call it, the it factor in Eagles winning football games in 2025? 100% no. It's been the friggin' defense. And if you can't see that, and I'm talking to the general fan base, then you might have to take a look at yourself. So what Jalen Hurts has provided the Philadelphia Eagles this year, and last year, is extremely replaceable by the way the defense is working. And if you already have a working formula in place for your defense, why not get it even stronger with a Max Crosby? And don't forget, you got your draft picks that you can work with too next year, because you can be picking up essentially an additional first-round pick, because you still have your first-round pick. So you can get funky with more weapons, either for the offense or defense. Just telling you, man, it's not that big of an outlandish trade, if you ask me. It's a trade that makes sense, I think, for both organizations going forward. Honestly do. I really do. A first-round draft pick overall. Now, is this the year that you want that number one overall pick? Is there any year that you wouldn't? It's all about how you make that pick work for you. But I understand it's not a very strong quarterback class at all. It's worse than last year's, on paper at least. But why not, man? Let's kick the tires on it. Again, Jalen Hurts has not done anything to me that's irreplaceable for this football team. Has never done anything that's irreplaceable for me. It can be replaced. And then one day it's going to have to be replaced. And that's just a reality. So that's the first trade I wanted to address. And by the way, before I break into the second trade, let me remind you that that segment was brought to you by the Pittsburgh Sports Tonight program every Monday and Tuesdays here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network at 7 p.m. Join John as he'll get you caught up in what's happening in the Pittsburgh sports scene. The show's last an hour. I know you probably can only take about 5 minutes to talk about Pittsburgh sports, but they stretched it out for an hour. So good work on their part. But the Pittsburgh Sports Desk, part of our Pittsburgh Sports family of shows here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network. So make sure you're checking them out. Now, the second trade that I would like to propose here tonight is about your baseball team. And again, brought up last night, we talked about the possibilities, a real possibility that JT Realmuto was probably not coming back in 2026. As we get deeper into this, as every day goes by, it becomes like more and more of a mystery why he's not re-signed, which then brings up the more and more of a possibility of him not being re-signed. And what's the reasons around the holdup? I think it's more of a JT sort of like, nosing the Phillies up against the wall, saying, you know what, you're going to give me what I want because you have no choice. Type of negotiating. I don't think there's much back and forth happening. I think it's pretty one-sided right now. And for the Phillies not budging for whatever reason, I don't know. If for whatever reason they don't get this deal done and JT does sign with somewhere else, we talked about it last night. What's the contingency plan for this baseball team at catcher? Because they don't have it inside. They don't have the horses. What's going on, Joe? They don't got it, man. They don't got the MLB-ready players. They got Marchand and they got Stubbs. And I don't think you can go into a 162-game season where allegedly you have World Series aspirations with your battery pair being Garrett Stubbs and Rafael Marchand. I just don't think that's going to be the best route to go. So you're going to have to figure out another plan. And in the free agent market, there's a couple, but they're older guys. They're Cameron Rupp type players. Not doing it for me. We've exhausted and traded away stupidly all of our good trading prospects. Logan O'Hoppe, once again, where have you gone? Eduardo Tait. We are thin. We are paper thin at catching depth within the organization. Matter of fact, criminally thin. What Dave Dombrowski did to our catching in this organization, I don't think people are paying enough attention to that. The damage he caused to our catching prospect pool by those two trades may have ramifications over the next 10 to 15 years. And of course, Dombrowski will be long gone by then. We won't. We'll still be here. But how mismanaged he did. And again, even if they re-sign JT, that's not going to change how desperately thin we are at catcher in this organization. That's not changing that. That's just throwing a Band-Aid over the problem for the year. But, the catching situation in this organization is bad. And in the short term, if we do not sign JT, there's just nobody left in the cupboard. There isn't. So we got to find a way to get better. And I have a trade proposal tonight. I have something that I think would work for both teams. Joe says he wants his fantasy league. It'll be fun next year. The callers versus the host. We'll see what we can do about that, Joe. You came back and won that thing? I thought you were down like 70 points in the second half. Well, congratulations. Yeah, we'll see if we can work that out. Joe Hale with his, by the way, I handily won my league. Won it by my opponent never even broke the 100-point plateau. So trade. Not JT Realmuto. The Phillies trade proposal to upgrade the catching position if they do not sign JT Realmuto is as follows. Bryson Stott, Gene Cabrera, Gage Wood go into the Colorado Rockies for Hunter Goodman. This makes sense for the Phillies 100% because pure and simple, we just don't have anything at catcher, right? It makes sense for the Rockies because plain and simple, the Rockies don't have anything anywhere. Nowhere. With maybe the exception of Hunter Goodman. This kid's a good player. He's a very good player. He's an all-star, right? And he's going to be a very good player. And he's going to waste some very valuable time of his playing career languishing with the Colorado Rockies. So we're doing him a favor by rescuing him from that situation. And, of course, he's under team control for the next 4 years, which is what we need in order to replenish the catching pool in our organization. Farabus would probably be ready for MLB action by the time he hits the open market, which could be the potential bridge to him, which is the next great thing that we have coming up the system, which he's not that great. But obviously, Bryson Stott, moving away from him, I just think it's a situation where do you look long-term at Bryson Stott? We're coming up now. I think he's got 2 more years he's a free agent, I think, at the end of 26. The end of 27. He'll be a free agent. But long-term with Bryson Stott, is he your long-term second baseman? I say he's not. Gene Cabrera, trust me, it hurts me to have to put him up here for this trade because I'm a big fan of Gene Cabrera. I've watched his ascension into the Phillies minor league systems over the last couple seasons. I highly, highly, highly predict that he'll be a starter at AAA to start this season. And potentially, especially if he ends up in Colorado, probably be pitching in the major league rotation by the end of the summer. Here in Philadelphia, he may not debut until next year, but he's right there on the verge of being ready to come to the show. And then, of course, Gage Wood, which is our first-round pick from last year, who's eons away from seeing major league play. Pitching prospects, very high. Both these pitching prospects are top 30 in our organization. That's something that Colorado needs to start. Obviously, you got to stockpile those arms if you're going to get better. Hunter Goodman, under team control for the next 3 years. But again, going forward, is Hunter Goodman somebody that they're going to be able to hold on to when they're good? And I just don't think they are. And I say make this trade. Now, Bryson Stott, they could view Bryson as maybe a cornerstone piece into what they're building out there. Make him the face of the franchise, along with what's his name, Condren, the former the first round pick they had a couple years ago from UGA. Make them to the new super duo of the Colorado Rockies. I'm just telling you, man, this trade would make a lot of sense to me. I know the Phillies would never do this. I don't know if it's so much the Phillies wouldn't do this. I don't think the Rockies would. But I would love to see Hunter Goodman wearing Phillies pinstripes. It would make me lose all. I'd be done with Logan O'Hoppe glazing. It'd be over with because I would find a new boy toy, so to speak, in Hunter Goodman because I really like what this kid brings to the table. If you haven't watched any of Hunter Goodman, and you probably haven't because no one sits down and watches Colorado Rocky baseball unless, of course, they're playing the Phillies. Go ahead and watch some of his stuff. Research him online. He's got all the goods, man. He's a young player on the rise. So Hunter Goodman to the Phillies for Bryson Stott, Gene Cabrera, Gage Wood. I do it today. I do it right now. I do it twice on Sunday, and I don't even think twice about it. Even if we resign JT, honestly, because we don't have anything. We don't have anything at all in catching this year if we don't resign JT, and we certainly don't have anything next year or even the year after that. So Hunter Goodman will be a way to restock the pond when it comes to our catching prospects. So that was my other trade proposal. So there you have it. Two very interesting trades. A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts to the Raiders for Brock Bowers, Max Crosby, and the Raiders' 2026 first-round draft pick, which would be the first pick overall in this year's draft. And going to the Rockies, Bryson Stott, Gene Cabrera, Gage Wood in return for catcher Hunter Goodman. If the Phillies don't sign JT Realmuto, and even if they do, let's be honest. So there you have it. Finishing the 2025 year with a bang. Let's watch the Jalen Hurts huggers' heads explode because I have committed the mortal sin of blasphemy. How dare I say Jalen Hurts should be traded? Everybody should be traded. There is no player on this team. Matter of fact, there's no player on any of the four majors right now. Anybody that's untouchable, in my opinion. Not one. All right, let's take a pause here. We'll do the other night segment, and then I'm going to go over my top 5 stories of the year, my top 5 Philadelphia sports stories of 2025. Again, it's. I want to put a very tight disclaimer on that. It's my top 5 stories. All right, you may have a different list. That's fine, but these are mine. Okay, so you can get upset with them all you want. We can debate them all you want, but these are mine. Mine. What am I doing here? Yeah, so these are mine. All right, let's do the other night segment, and then we'll get into our top 5, and we'll wrap it up. All right, yes, this is the other night segment, and we are, of course, slogged down with Flyer prospect talk. We're about 80% through. I've gone through about 80% of the Flyer prospects so far this season. I'm pretty impressed by that, man. I mean, that's pretty damn good work. We've been talking pretty much Flyer prospects since, I would say, since the season began, so since October. Kind of going over 1 or 2 a night. I think some nights we did 2 in order to kind of get ahead of the game. But we've settled down to pretty much 1 a night. And last night we talked about Hunter McDonald being sort of one of those prospect players that had at one time high hopes. They all have high hopes, but the Flyers probably had a lot higher hopes on him a few years back. But now as we're getting a little bit later in his clock is taking a little bit faster now. And, it's coming up time for him to sort of put up or shut up, I guess. I don't know if that's the right phrase to sort of put out there when it comes to some of these players. But yeah, he's sort of trending in that direction. So let's get into tonight's prospect of the night. Another player that the Flyers are high on. Another player that I'm high on. I've been watching him progress throughout his career, and that's Spencer Gill. And the reason why I'm high on him and the reason why I've been watching him progress, well, there's 2 reasons. One, he's a second-round draft pick in 2024. And number 2, he's one of those unicorn guys, right? The right-handed defenseman. Never can have enough of these guys. Now, 5'11" and 185 pounds is not very good, okay? Especially at the NHL standard. That's a little too short, a little too light. But the boy's still growing, and these numbers were pulled back when he was drafted in 2024. So we're almost 2 years into that. So I expect him to grow into himself a little bit, maybe peak out at about 6 foot, 200 pounds. And I can live with that. But Gill is a physical and imposing defenseman who flashes impressive playmaking and scoring abilities. He can hit the smallest of passing lanes, beat opponents with fakes, and float shots to the top of the net with a bit of deception. So you got sort of obviously he's an offensive defenseman. You got maybe sort of a comp. I want to be very careful when I say comp, but a profile offensively as sort of a Jamie Drysdale quarterbacking type situation where he can get pucks on net, and he has deception on how to do that. And that's what you're looking for from a defenseman, right? Because they're playing in distance and they're not really going to be up front. So you want to be a defenseman who can pass the puck, who can move the play, quarterback the play, whatever word you want to use is what you want to look for. And again, on that right-handed side, you can never have enough of those difference makers. And he is still very young in his development. This is when he was part of the Rimouski Oceanic of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League up there in Canada. He's no longer with them anymore. Let's talk about what he's been doing so far. He's still up in the QGHML, but I don't think he's with them anymore. No, he's now with the Blainville Boys Parade Armada. Jesus Christ. He just got dealt a couple, matter of fact, last week. So he started the season, or actually, no, I'm sorry. He finished the season last year with Rimouski Oceanic. Then he was injured. He ended up signing with Blainville and has only played so far 2 games. He's coming back from that injury. He had a knee injury, came back from it. So far, just 2 games played, nothing, and he's a +1. So kind of off to a little bit of a slow start due to an injury is Spencer Gill. But there's time with a guy like him. Only 2 years into the process, 1 year technically, second season as a Flyer prospect. You have another year of time with him before you have to make a decision. Matter of fact, before I say that, did he sign? He is actually he is signed. So the Flyers have signed him. So you have as much time as you want with him. I think you have at least 3 years with him before you even have to bring him over to the Flyers. So he is somebody obviously they have faith in if they've already locked him up. And as a second round pick, or second round draft pick, you would think they would have faith in him in order to do that. So Spencer Gill, not necessarily part of what the incoming wave of Flyers talent is. And what I mean by the incoming wave, that would be players like Lechenko, Barkey, Bonk, maybe Chernik, players along those lines. He's that second wave behind them, he's like Porter Mortone, Jack Nesbitt, Spencer Gill. He would be in that group of players. So he's not the incoming wave of Flyer prospects. He's like a wave behind as he kind of works his way up, only being a 2024 draft pick. So there's some time with him. Again, coming off of a pretty bad injury as he works his way back. But a player the Flyers are going to keep an eye on, a player that I will continue to keep an eye on, and that is Flyers right-hand defenseman prospect Spencer Gill, currently playing in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League up there in Canada, part of the CHL, for the Blainville Broussard Armada. I can't make that stuff up. So there you have it. There is our of the night Flyer prospect Spencer Gill. And that was brought to you by the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn. Kyle and me will be back at this thing on Thursday at 4 p.m., not 7, as we will cut up Eagles Commanders one final week of regular season action. And we'll have it for you live on New Year's Day, as Kyle, who was absent last week due to some traveling issues, will be back in studio on Thursday at 4. So make sure you're there for that. All right, let's go into Flyers Canucks, by the way, are starting now. Let's get into my top 5 Philadelphia sports stories of 2025. Now, some of these stories these are not like I mean, there could be some negativity in these stories. I didn't say the top 10 or top 5 most positive sports stories in Philadelphia. I said the top 5 stories as far as I'm concerned. And it being that it's New Year's Eve and that we won't talk again on this program until after the clock turns midnight on December 31st. So I won't have an opportunity to go over any kind of top list with you until now, right here. So we're going to do it tonight. And here we go. Let's just get it out of the way. The top 5 Philadelphia sports stories as based on me. Number 5, drum roll. All right, number 5 is the Eagles Super Bowl parade. Obviously, being from a generation of a fan that I'm from, I had no opportunities to go to a Super Bowl parade up until Super Bowl 2, when they beat the Patriots, and I was there for that. I did not go to this past Super Bowl parade. I just didn't really want to be involved in it. But I know a lot of people that went to Super Bowl 59, Super Bowl parade. It was probably their first because maybe they were too young or not available for Super Bowl 52. So it was their first. And anytime you can go to one of these Super Bowl things, obviously you should take advantage of it because they are not necessarily that far and that common. So when you have one, it's a positive top story, and that is my number 5. My number 5 in my top 5 Philadelphia sports stories of 2025, the Eagles Super Bowl parade on a very cold, blustery day. And now, again, I wasn't there for that one, but I know the one in 18, it was cold as hell, especially downtown when that wind starts whipping around them buildings. It gets about 10 degrees cooler than it is actually outside. But I did not go to this last one, but I know a lot of people that did go. So number 5 is the Eagles Super Bowl parade in my top 5 sports stories of 2025. My number 4 story of 2025 Philadelphia sports has got to be Saquon Barkley and the season that he had in Midnight Green. Over 2,500 all-purpose yards. Singularly, the savior of the offensive season for the Eagles last year. And again, I know I'm going to piss off the Hurts huggers. I know you're going to get mad at me because I'm not giving your quarterback allegedly enough respect for what he did. But if you're going to sit here and look at me straight face and tell me that the Eagles win the Super Bowl without what Saquon Barkley did last year, I got a bridge up there in one of the boroughs of New York City that I like to sell you because you're completely missing the train. What Saquon Barkley did last year does not happen often. It doesn't happen ever. And it's never happened here. And, you know, when we were getting ready for the run down the stretch, and and he was also coming up on the single season rushing record of all time, and they decided to sit him, I was pissed off, man, because I didn't honestly think the Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl. So you're depriving Saquon of at least an individual record, which of course, you know, worked out because the Eagles did win the Super Bowl. But I would have still loved to have seen him gotten that record. What he did and how he transformed the Eagle offense. Well, hell, we're seeing how transformative it was based on the fact that he couldn't replicate it and how much the offense has struggled in 2025. Yeah, you want to blame the offensive coordinator, you can. But that's not the reason they're struggling, and you know it as well as I do. It's because Saquon Barkley has not had the type of season that he had in 2024. It's simple put. Again, you can do the math formulas, you can break things down, you can throw numbers at me, but you're not going to be able to try to talk me out of what the difference maker of Saquon Barkley's 2024 season was and how vastly effective and how vastly transformative it was to this offense. Because we're seeing what him not having that type of season this year has done to the offense. So my number 4 top 5 Philadelphia sports story of 2025 is Saquon Barkley and his all-world performance that he put in last year. That takes me to number 3. If I'm going to give credit to Saquon Barkley for his performance in 2024, I got to throw some love towards the Philadelphia Eagles as well. And so much love that I got to give them number 3 on my list. of the top 5 Philadelphia greatest sports stories in Philadelphia was the play of the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles defense. The dominance that they showed around, I think it started around week 9 against Dallas, all the way up until Super Sunday. Again, without the contributions of that defense and what they did, we're not Super Bowl champions. We're not. Even without Saquon. Well, I don't know. Are we? They might be. But they were very dominant. They were so dominant, in fact, that they went, I think it was they had 9 turnovers. They had 9 turnovers collectively forced heading into that week 9 game against Dallas. When the season ended, they had accumulated 31 forced turnovers. That's amazing. And that obviously was the thing that I think really put the Eagle defense over the top. Then they told everyone to hold their beer because they put on another performance in the playoffs in the run to the Astros Super Bowl. In the playoffs, the Eagles forced 13 turnovers in 4 games. They forced 13 turnovers. They were averaging over 3 turnovers a game forced in the playoffs last year. They also sacked their opponents' quarterbacks 16 times through 4 games. So again, doing the math, they averaged 4 sacks a game in that playoff run. You're forcing over 3 turnovers a game, and you're sacking your opponent's quarterback 4 times a game. That's a recipe for friggin' a championship. And of course, that's what it was. And then they told everybody to hold their beer in the Super Bowl. They saved the best for last. They sacked Mahomes 6 times. They forced 3 turnovers. And yet they allowed Jalen Hurts to walk away with the Super Bowl MVP because apparently he was the reason why they won. No. So, number 3, best sports story of 2025 is the Philadelphia Eagle defense and what they were able to do to help their team win a Super Bowl. And again, I cited the playoffs because that's the games that were played in 2025. Yes, I'm separating the 2024 season from the 2025 playoffs. So that's the reason why I'm giving number 3. Number 2, I'm going to show some love towards the Phillies. Even though it ended in a very predictable way because they ran it back, and much like it's probably going to end this year, you still can't take away what Kyle Schwarber did offensively for this baseball team. I mean, listen, again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I was, watching him do what he does or what he did in 2025 offensively was not impressive. It was. It was impressive, but I knew it was all for nothing because I knew when it came to push came to shove, and we could talk about playoff Kyle Schwarber versus regular season Kyle Schwarber all you want, and that's a valid point. And I get the frustrations there when it comes to that. But what he did offensively for the Phillies in 2025 was absolutely amazing. And here it is. 56 homers, 132 RBIs, batted .240, 145 hits, scored 111 runs, had an OBP of .365, hit 4 homers in that game in August. On August 28th, was an NL All-Star Game MVP, for the home run derby. And no, he won the MVP for the game because he had the swing-off thing. And just an amazing season for Kyle Schwarber individually. And it led to some fun over the summer at the bank watching the Phillies hit an abundant amount of home runs. And, of course, in October, it all ended. But you can't not appreciate what Kyle Schwarber was offensively for the Phillies in 2025. So much so that I'm giving him the number 2 spot on my list of the greatest of the top Philadelphia sports stories of 2025. Kyle Schwarber's offense, and that leads me to number 1. I sort of teased it the entire list. It's got to be the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. As much as I am not in anymore when it comes to the Eagles, as much as I am not nearly the type of fan I used to be, and it's because of certain things that I don't like about the organization. I'm never going to sit back and talk negatively about them outside the circle, nor will I not appreciate a great Super Bowl opportunity. And they went out and they completely dismantled the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 59, rightfully so, winning the team's or franchise's second Super Bowl championship and creating an opportunity now this year to launch the Eagles dynasty. So that's hands down is my number one story of 2025, and that's the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. So there you go. Number 5 was the Eagles parade. Number 4 was Saquon Barkley. Number 3 was the Eagles defense in the playoffs. Number 2 was Kyle Schwarber's performance. And number 1 was, of course, the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. There are your top 5 Philadelphia sports moments per me, Matty B, from the It's a Wrap Sports Network. And that, my friends, is going to take us to the end. I will save the card till tomorrow or on until Thursday night. We'll have some time. There's not much going on Thursday. So we'll be back on Thursday, and we'll talk the card. We'll talk everything else. Big stuff coming up on the network over the next 2 days. Remember, later tonight, in about 3 hours, I'll be back for Flyers, Vancouver Canucks, Clear the Ice. And then tomorrow, you got a bunch of best of. And then later tomorrow night, I'll be back for Flyers, Flames, Clear the Ice. New Year's Day, the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn at 4 p.m. and me at 9. And then all the great stuff we have coming out of the holidays starting on Friday. So make sure you're tuned in to the It's a Wrap Sports Network forever. And let me take the opportunity now as I'm going to sign off and wish you and yours a happy new year. I hope your 2025 was everything you wanted it to be. And if it wasn't, fortunately, you have the opportunity to do it again in about a day. So here's wishing everybody out there a happy and safe, prosperous, fun-filled, peace-filled 2026. And from all of us here at the network, it was fun taking the ride of 2025 with you. And now we get the chance to do it all over again in 2026. Another playoff run for the Eagles. The Titans final coming up with the Phillies. That 6-month journey. And all the shows that we have and all the shows that we don't have yet, but will probably show up in 2026. And all the personalities and hosts that we don't have yet might find their way onto our network in 2026. We're excited for that. So happy New Year to you guys. I'll see you later tonight on the Clear the Ice, and then I'll see you tomorrow. No, I won't see you tomorrow. Yes, I will. See you on Clear the Ice tomorrow. I'll be seeing you out of you. So happy New Year. We'll talk soon.